Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Wellness Wednesday Inspiration. My name is Fernanda, and I am here with Dr. Linda Marquez for another episode of goodness. We're going to bring you a lot of information today. We have a wonderful, wonderful guest, Judy Herman. Dr. Linda is going to share a little bit more about Judy with all of you. And the topic for today is imposter syndrome and staying true to yourself. And I know, at least I can speak about myself. I've dealt with both actually in imposter syndrome and perhaps sometimes not feeling like I can stay true to myself because of pleasing others and circumstances that kind of come up in life. So I'm super excited to learn from Judy. We've actually been in a program together. I admire her very much. She has a book that we'll be telling you a little bit about as well. So, and of course, Dr. Linda's back. I'm super excited also to hear how last week went. Dr. Linda, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing amazing. It's Wednesday and I sure missed everybody last week, but it was just probably one of the most life-changing days of week of my entire year, or life, I should say. It was pretty powerful, but I'm excited to be here, and such a amazing, relevant topic that probably 70% of the people do experience. And the interesting thing is it's mostly women. So I can't wait to just dig in with this with Judy. She's an author, well, properly Judy Herman. She's an author. She's a counselor. She works with a lot of mental therapists, and those who are really looking, like really digging in, looking for in their soul, what are they supposed to be doing in their lives? How are they supposed to show up, help others? And she also has, she's a speaker as well. She's an author, which I think you have the book there with you, Beyond Messy Relationships, Divine Invitation to Your Authentic Self. So I think that's going to be a very relevant book and helpful for many people, because I know, like you were saying in the introduction, Fernanda, we all can relate to that. And, we'll let her just explain to us exactly what imposter syndrome is, because syndrome and diseases definitely are two different, they're totally two different things. However, a lot of times they're used interchangeably, but we're going to get into that. She's also a national certified counselor. She's been awarded with so many different awards there in Tennessee. I actually lived in Tennessee for a few years, so love Tennessee. Awesome. That's outside of Nashville, but yeah, so I'm excited to have her, and let's bring her on so that she can share a little bit about her, and let's dig into the topic because I'm ready.
I am ready. Hello, Judy. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Fernanda and Dr. Linda. I so appreciate the two of you. By the way, I am licensed in Georgia too. Since COVID, I had my office in Chattanooga, and I decided to do outdoor counseling and virtual. So I'm also licensed in Georgia, just FYI.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good to know. Judy, it's a pleasure having you on today. I've been wanting to bring you on the show for a while now, because I heard your story during Power Voice. We're doing actually two programs together, one with Les Brown and one with John. And your story is very powerful. So I would like to maybe start the show, if you can let the listeners know a little bit about you, and actually also what inspired your book, which to me, it was probably one of the most powerful stories that I've heard in Power Voice.
Oh my, well, thank you so much. It's not been an easy journey by any means. So I grew up in a very conservative faith denomination and learned a whole lot of don'ts. You don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't do drugs, and you don't have premarital dancing. Well, I've learned over the years, I've broke through a lot of things. I have a different perspective now that I am a mental health counselor, and I've seen hundreds of clients, both individuals and couples, and they've really given me courage to show up in my vibrantly authentic self, because it takes a lot of courage to come to counseling and work on your own stuff. But my story is such that I tried fitting myself. It was almost like I was this square peg in a round hole, trying to be the submissive wife. And I did raise 4 children in a troubled marriage. It wasn't always troubled in those 30 years of marriage to that first husband. And but it was like what I've heard a term from Les Brown phrase that says, you weren't living together, you're dying together. And so the first marriage did end in divorce. I did remarry my dance partner and best friend, who was also a mental health advocate. Oh, the only thing is, and he had years of wellness from his bipolar disorder. But little did I know it was as severe as it was. And it showed up for the first time 4.5 years into the marriage. I was almost a twice divorced widow or a widow then. But I stayed in the marriage and, praying that and hoping that things would get better. And they seem to get better. And you go through these seasons, but it is a very severe mental illness, and the marriage just could not survive. So the catalyst actually for me writing Beyond Messy Relationships is it was my husband's second episode, right? And I'm really proud now that you've got the book that doesn't have the seal on it. The seal has the Author Academy Awards. I wanted to share that with you because they got printed up, and anyway, it does have an award with Author Academy Awards, and I'm very proud of it. So that was my healing journey, and here I am. There's a whole lot more to the story, but it's kind of like you face your deepest, darkest fears. You face your deepest, darkest shame. And my journey has been that, like, leaning into those feelings that most of us would rather push down, or would rather have rather drink it away or whatever, but just facing that and those becoming truly for me, I'm, divine invitations. I'm a woman of faith and highly regard scripture, but there has been this just meeting God in the midst of those dark places, and then there being some transformation and awakening. So that kind of is it in a nutshell. So yes, I haven't always been a mental health counselor. Like, raising the 4 kids was my first career, and then going into the mental health field later, it's basically a second career, but it is it's been very enlightening. It's been quite a journey.
That's awesome, especially as I think sometimes people can relate to you more when you've kind of gone through your own sort of dark night through the soul, and the type of profession you're in with counselors. A lot of people don't feel like, they almost come in with a shame, like, because I have something going on, I don't want another human being to really know me, because they're not going to like me. And that kind of just ties into, what we're going to talk about today. And I thought you would be like the perfect person that can enlighten us in that, because most people do feel like they're not living their true life the way they're supposed to, because they're pleasing other people and, going to speak. Like, if I'm having an issue and I need to go speak to someone, it's just like, oh my gosh, they're really going to find out who I am, and they're not going to like me. So is that kind of similar to, when you deal with, clients, patients on a daily basis, that you can maybe equivalent a little bit of that imposter syndrome with them? And can you even define that for us, what it is? Because there's a difference between a syndrome and a disease, just like they talk about chronic fatigue syndrome, but there's a lot of health professionals that don't even acknowledge that it's a disease, but more of a syndrome, which is just a group of more like symptoms. A person's tired, they wake up and they feel like they just want to sleep all day, they're gaining weight, they have no excitement for life. And you may even see that kind of overlapping with some of the clients that you work with.
Absolutely. So Yes, imposter syndrome, it's kind of loosely defined as just, doubting your abilities, like feeling that you're a fraud. Now, keep in mind, it's not in the diagnosis it's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual that mental health professionals use. But think about it, the DSM is called the DSM, which is kind of the Bible that we as mental health professionals use. We look up our diagnosis and things, but it used to be a very thin a thin book early on, but it's gone through so many, revisions. And so who knows if this is going to be in there later. But we do need to recognize it because, as you said, Dr. Linda, I heard those stats somewhere about 70% of people, high achieving folks, they will experience, if they only found out, if they only knew. For me, as it showed up, having my husband with bipolar disorder now, he was very open about his diagnosis, and he led bipolar support groups, and he was very high functioning man for so many years. So people knew that I was married to a husband who had bipolar 1 with psychotic features. Now, and it was really, it was almost like our marriage was like a model, or he was a model of wellness. I mean, it was just amazing. So when he had his first psychotic episode, and here, yes, I kind of beat myself up a bit because I'm thinking, here I'm a middle. How did I not see this? I should know these signs. Well, I thought he was having the spiritual awakening. Well, he was out of tune with reality for a good 6 weeks. It just, and then you raise your level of awareness. Okay. So, and anyway, it was hard because there were couples I was working with that were so much more functional than me and my husband were. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if they only found out, of course, and we deal with that imposter syndrome. But so, what busted through the imposter syndrome for me is writing my book. It's scary to write my book because honestly, I thought, oh my gosh, if my clients read this, they're going to say, and why are we seeing her as our therapist? But it really has been something that has given people hope, because they see, oh, here she is, and she's a therapist, and she's not, she's put together enough to be my counselor, I guess. I don't know. People like for you to be real. And I think we go through that, at various stages in our lives, right? It's not like we can reach them, we can beat imposter syndrome at one stage and not face it in another.
And I think being open about it, like you said, it's key, right? Because that's kind of just being open with who you are, what's going on in your life, how you really think, how you really feel. And when you are open, I think people can see that, people can feel that. I do believe that people can read energy, right?
Absolutely.
And so if someone's seeing you as their therapist and they feel in a sense that there is something, like a wall or something that it's being hidden, then I don't think people may be able to be as open with you. But if they can relate with you, and even reading the book and reading the story of your husband and identifying with that story, creates that openness where people can relate to you.
That's so true. Here's something else though that has come up, and it's been quite a traumatic year for me in 2020. And I know all of us in 2020 have gone through the pandemic and losing loved ones. But the book had already been published. And so you read the end of the book, and I do give acknowledgments to my second husband, who was really my biggest cheerleader. There's not a whole lot of men who could allow their wives to write these deep, dark secrets or dark places. But he was my biggest cheerleader. And then when he read the final manuscript, and by the way, my writing coach said, Judy, don't share any of your writing with anybody that you live under the same roof with, because that will influence, right? So I didn't let him read it, but at the end he did, and I was very concerned. Will this break out another episode? But he read it through, and it was a precious time. He was very, very supportive, and he said to me, Judy, maybe our story will keep me from getting sick again. Well, and since that time, he in 2020, he has had another psychosis and he has not come back. So that was another thing that rose up. Oh my gosh, people are going to read this and they think that, we're doing this resilient growth dance. But no, that's not the case. I'm an uncoupled woman. I'm a second divorced woman right now. And that was like something hard to even face this year, right? These last few months of I've been trying to do relationships. I've been trying to make my marital relationships work all my life, a total of 40 years. And now I am an uncoupled woman, and that's where I'm at. So I'm kind of busting through my own imposter syndrome right now with you two ladies here.
Yeah. And thank you for being so
Open.
just so transparent about it, because a lot of people, like you said, they're afraid to like, well, what will this person think, and what will they think, and how's this going to affect my, my practice, my business, my livelihood. And then we just start asking those questions, and we start to torment our own selves with just the conversations we're having in our head. And so many people will never live their life to the fullest capacity and live life in excellence because of those conversations that they're having in their head. So, with you kind of and we're all going through this to some degree, it's just, you're being open about it, and with your clients and with the book and promoting your book and being on podcasts and so forth. So thank you very much because that then allows us, when someone is educated and awarded as if someone like Judy is opening up to this, then it allows for other people to kind of shine their light and say, you know what? I know how she feels. I'm glad that it's almost like I'm glad I'm not the only one going through this, because it makes you feel like it's not, I don't want to say it's normal, but it's common.
Yes, absolutely. And I do want to give hope to those who are living with a loved one who has very severe mental illness or any kind of mental illness. And I do want to give hope to people who are struggling with mental illness. So, when you go through divorce and, it's like, okay, you have all this stuff, right? It's kind of like you rewind your history a little bit and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what is this? But honestly, it's been a real blessing for me to have written the book when I did, because little did I know that all of us would be where we are. And I know that the time is pretty ripe for us to, as a people, as a nation, as a world, to zone into. We've all gone through trauma. We've all gone through loss, and there's life on the other side. There's life, vibrantly authentic life. So, here I am. I mean, like, I have to go outside sometimes. I just look up, and, okay, here I am, Lord. Here I am. I'm not going to hide. I'm just going to live my life. This is what it is. And honestly, I've had more joy. I kind of am surprising myself at this stage, because you'd think I'd be crawled up in a fetal position, which I kind of was in some parts of my book, as you've read. And I would, be down and depressed. But you know what? Our life is so valuable. That's why our wonderful, legendary coach, Les Brown, has been so helpful, hasn't he, for now?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, really, I'm getting some life-giving truth there.
Judy, I want to talk to you about something that actually it's a challenge, and up to the moment is a challenge for me, and it's the fact of being vulnerable. Because when you are being vulnerable, first of all, you got to be super strong, right? To be able to allow people to see you in how you really are. And also, my fear always, I think, the voice, the committee, as we call it, tells me that if I open up and if I am being vulnerable with people around me, they may see me as weak. Right? So, and it's the opposite, right? When you are vulnerable, you have to be really strong.
That is so true.
However, this fear, right, of people, and my fear actually, and I'm being vulnerable right now, right, and letting you guys know, right? Yay, we're breaking through. But it's a real thing, right? When people rather close off and have this alter image perhaps that they present out into the world, because they cannot allow themselves to maybe look weak or open up and share their wounds, their story, the reality of who they are and how they feel and how they think into the world. So how do you break through that, and how do you perhaps work with someone to work through those fears, those barriers, and allow themselves to open up?
That's a really good question. And it's not always wise to open up to anybody. And when you are in a stage of weakness, or of, that you just really need to only make sure you're with trusted people that can give you feedback, right? And who can affirm your dignity and your love and your worthiness. Okay. So when you get really grounded in that, then you know what? You are so grounded so that if anybody, it does make you strong. So to go back to your question, how do you help somebody with this? Well, it's interesting that you asked, Fernanda, because I just worked with someone who, without giving a whole lot of details, is kind of like coming across strong. That's how he always grew up. That's what the role models were. That's what the role models were in the 50s. And you watch these John Wayne movies, and, it's kind of deeply ingrained, and I think especially for men, I'm not going to pick on men, but it is for men, I think, to realize that their only emotion that they're comfortable with is irritability and anger. Well, there's a problem with that, right? We got to get comfortable with all of our emotions, because all of our emotions are basically temporary messengers to our souls. So anyway, I was helping this one individual to, your wife's not going to hear 75% of what you're saying, because what she wants is to feel felt by you. She wants to feel felt. And that is a core human need that all of us have. So when we feel felt by our loved one, we've got to be familiar with that feeling in the first place, don't we? We've got to be able to feel and let those tears come instead of letting them, it's just not good for your health overall, is it, Fernanda? I know that you all know this, Dr. Linda, too. Like, your emotions and your health and your well-being is all integrated. And so if you are bottling up emotions, it is making you more vulnerable to diseases. And we want to be vulnerable within ourselves and with those whom we trust, right? And not everybody's ready to share their story publicly or write a book and get it published. Although after I wrote my book, because most therapists who write books, they write about the intense and dramatic stories of their clients instead of themselves. But I came away from that project saying every therapist needs to write their memoir, write their stories, because it was so good for my soul, and it helped me to be more aware and be a more effective human being, counselor overall.
That's beautiful.
Now, do you find that it's more with women than with men? As I was prepping for today and going through some of your information, I mean, Michelle Obama, Jennifer Lopez, Maya Angelou, those are some pretty prominent women that they sometimes they feel like they have imposter syndrome. And is it more women because of it's men that have always been the successors of, even Einstein. It's like, if they really knew, someone as intelligent as him. And, is it more that we see this? Is it different the way you see it in men and in women? Is there some commonalities? Like, maybe it's the high achievers. Like, we have to prove, it's almost like we have to prove something to everyone else. So it's more maybe the inner critic in us. So can you kind of expand on that? How different it is with men and women. Is it more like the women that are like the go-getters, the type A? But it is pretty common among, like I said, 70% of the population. But do you see, some characteristics with it's higher in this type of individual?
That's an awesome and a wonderful question, Linda. And I'm just going to tell you, I don't know. I simply don't know the answer to that. And I think culture, how it makes a difference. And situation. So I honestly have not gone through through as much, what do you call it? The research on it. And I should have done more studying, I suppose. What do you think? Do you think it is with more women, Dr. Linda and Fernanda, than it is men, given the roles? Given the roles.
I think it is more with women. For one, hormonally, with the estrogen, how that really dictates a lot of our moods. It does impact it. And if you don't know how to, when you learn to manage your emotions and who you really are, you can live an amazing life. But a lot of times, I think a hormonal issue can be part of it. And second, it's been like since time, the man has always been, even from a biblical perspective, like he's head of household, it's God, it's man, and it's wife. So it's almost like a pecking order. And so maybe I kind of think, well, maybe that's why women feel like they have to try harder. They have to work harder because of that pecking order that we view as if people in any religion, whether it's it doesn't really matter whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Baptist, whether you're a Jehovah's Witness, a Mormon, whatever. I think there's always that pecking order of the man is head of household. And so, it just by default, we women kind of feel like we have to just level up a little bit more, go a little harder, go a little harder. And we even see that in the pay scale.
That's true. Mm-hmm. That is so very true. You're hitting on a lot of factors, yes, that I believe would definitely be valid when it comes to imposter syndrome, for sure. Having to overcompensate, right? And they'll all be roles.
I agree that it's most likely also related to how you grew up, what kind of beliefs were ingrained in you when you were a child. If you grow up in a household where women are more submissive, then of course, when you grow up, if you become successful, if you are out there and just, overcoming all these things, then you are going to probably have those subconscious beliefs, because the subconscious beliefs are ingrained in us when we're young. By the age of 6, we already have all of those beliefs in our subconscious mind. So if we grow up hearing and listening and observing that women are supposed to be less, that women are supposed to not accomplish as much, that women are supposed to stay home with the kids, et cetera, and you grow up thinking, you know what, I do want to go out there and I do want to get a corporate job and I want to become the owner of the company or whatever it is, you still have those subconscious beliefs to deal with. Also age, I think, and I can speak on that for myself, actually, when I graduated nursing, I was 19, 20 years old. And age for me had a factor, right? Because patients would look at me and they were like, is it bring your daughter to work day? And they would make that comments to me, right? And I look younger also than what I am. So I would feel like maybe I shouldn't be here. I don't look old enough to be doing the job, right? They would request an older, quote unquote, older nurse. And sometimes I would get an older nurse in age that had less years of experience than me. Because they wanted someone who looked older, simply, right? So I think it's more about society beliefs and the beliefs that you grow up with. What do you hear when you're younger? So it's more about that. However, I do believe that those beliefs are more common in women than they are in men. Men are usually, they grow up thinking and hearing that, men are powerful and men are successful and men can accomplish and men should do it and men should provide and you should go and you can do whatever you want and all these things, where women, not everybody, of course, depending on the household, but a lot of women and a lot of ethnicities do grow up with a different belief.
That's really that's great point for sure, Fernanda. Here's what I was thinking, actually, as we were talking about imposter syndrome. It is a feeling, it is a state of mind. And I'm wondering if, for me, I see it as, okay, it's going to come in your life, but really that is an invitation to grow grow beyond it. It's kind of like this fear that shows up, right? This fear, like Susan Jeffers has a book, feel the fear and do it anyway. So actually an invitation for growing to another level of being, or another level of authenticity. By the way, I think of like our authentic life. I don't think we ever like arrive, but we're on this journey toward it, right? And so when we bust through that fear that comes with the imposter syndrome, it's not just to live with that imposter syndrome. It is to kind of like ride the surf or something. Like if the waves are coming, you want to learn how to, and then you get good at it. So you could probably both identify to that, right? Where you've gained some confidences in areas that you previously had some imposter syndrome around, right? Am I right about that? Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, you put on when you're a little kid and you get new Easter clothes, let's say, or new clothes, and they don't quite fit. They're like a little too big. They don't quite fit. Well, that might be what kind of imposter syndrome is, but then we grow into them and they feel really comfortable. And then we grow out of them and then we go to another level of uncomfortable clothes. So I think it's a journey. I think we need to look at it as such.
So now that
in different stages too in your life, right? So you may feel perfectly okay and confident in so many different areas, and then you get into a different stage in your life, and it comes again, right? So it can come in different stages, and it can come in different situations too.
Absolutely.
So now that we've talked about a lot of what that is, which I don't even want to focus on that. I want to focus on the good stuff. That's just kind of to lay the spread now. And it's like, all right, what can we do now to overcome that? And we're going to go through phases in our life at different levels. We're going to feel it, whether it's, we're gaining a new, we're trying to master something and we're not quite there yet. We're out teaching on it or speaking on it, and we're not quite there because we know there's so much more out there that I need to learn. And I know that there's other professionals out there that know way better than I do with this topic that I'm just learning. So we are going to be going through phases in our life. So what are some strategies? What are like some, give us like a 1, 2, 3, like maybe some three hacks, strategies that we can start implementing so that we can overcome that, because we want to really continue to focus on our, the present moment, and how can we really leverage that to make it a better future?
Love the question, because actually I address this in my book, but also it is so true. There's a really simple and profound formula that hundreds of my clients have used, and it has the potential for getting you out of your imposter syndrome and into your authentic life. But it is so simple. And the first strategy is awareness. So if you were to just think of awareness, and awareness is like this lifelong journey in our lives, and it, like at this present moment right now, there's so much we are not aware of, but we can always look back. We can say, hey, when I was 20, I was thinking like that. Wow, I don't think like that anymore. At least it should be that way, right? Some of us grow and then we're still thinking like we're 20 if we're 65 or something. But no, we grow in our awareness. I think for us as women, especially if you're a mom, I think y'all are moms, but anyway, I'm a grandmother, and like that really has opened up awareness big time. So awareness is first, and just pay attention to that letter A. And then the second strategy is intentionality. And that's where you make plans. You take the time to pray, to meditate, to journal, and you don't just stay stuck in because you have your aha moments, right? You have to have some plans to move forward. And then the third strategy is risks, like taking risks of growth, and pay attention to the letter R. Well, as you notice, that actually spells air, AIR. And you just breathe in, deep breath of air, because when you do, and you go all the way to the top of your lungs, and then you slowly breathe out like you're breathing through a straw, that's where we can get grounded in our present moment. And that is so crucial, because there's so many, we can live day in and day out in our what I call the Groundhog Day. same day over and over again. And our lives can be habits. And then we're going to struggle with the same fears or the same insecurities or the same lack of confidence. But we need to slow down enough and then take risks of growth. And honestly, me writing the book was a risk for sure, but every one of us have gone through risks of growth. And I'm going to give you an example. When I was a little kid, and we went to the neighborhood pool, and it was a community pool, right? You had to have a pass, and think about smelling the chlorine. This is like a memory I have in the concession stand, but there were big kids going up the high dive. I could go off the low dive, but these big kids were having fun going off the high dive, and I wanted to go off the high dive. So I start, I go up there and I'm just scared to death and I'm shivering, right? And then all these kids are behind me going up the ladder and calling me scaredy cat, and so I had this point of no return. I got on that high dive and it's like, you look over it, it's just scary. I mean, think of a little kid going off the high dive for the first time. You just think you're going to die. You do it, and then you have so much fun, right? But you don't want to go backwards. You don't want to go backwards. So that's my formula. My strategy is breathing fresh air.
Yeah.
If you're in a suffocating place, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your career, whether it's just like the walls are closing in on you, you need to take some deep breaths of air. Go outside, just look up at the sky, hang out with people who are taking some risks and who have grown. And anyway, that would be my strategy that I would encourage people.
Wow. I love that. That is so powerful. Air, awareness, intention, just being intentional and risk. And when we take risks, isn't there a quote about, it's better to take a risk and fail and live life to the fullest than not taking risk and never knowing what your life would have been like. And I know Les Brown has a quote about there's about how many dreams or books are at a cemetery. A cemetery. There you go.
Yeah.
And so many people, they've died with their dreams inside of them because of the fear, which is, the acronym of fear is something that's not appearing real, So
false evidence.
What's that?
False evidence.
Yes. False evidence appearing real. And a lot of it just really is in our heads. So, thank you so much for breaking that down, because I think it's just with those little nuggets, the formulas, the strategies and hacks that people, they just need, tell me a 1, 2, 3. And sometimes it is, but the awareness is so powerful. Just being aware of what you're speaking, how you're feeling, what you're seeing, and who's around you. So that's powerful. And then when you surround yourself around other people that are aware, it's like, oh my gosh, it just takes you to a different level. So I'm so grateful that we have you here bringing that awareness to us, to just remind us to stay on point, be aware, live life with your eyes open, because that's really awareness, how we're living life, right? Is when we are aware of what's going on and with our eyes open. So thank you so much for that. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
I think another part of awareness that came to my mind as you were explaining it too is having that awareness of where did that belief come from? Why don't I believe that I can be successful? Why don't I believe that? Why do I feel this way? Where did that belief eradicate? Like, where did it begin? Where did I get it from? Because most of the time what we find is that the beliefs that we have right now came from really nothing. Something that somebody said when you were 5 years old, right? You're never going to amount to anything in life. And then literally you're 40 years old, 30 years old, 50 years old, and that belief still keeping you stuck, keeping you in your comfort zone and not allowing you to take those risks that you're talking about. So bringing that awareness of where that belief originated and breaking down that belief and seeing, okay, is this belief something true? Or is it something that I can let go in my life? So thank you so much, Judy. It's been so amazing. And to finalize, I would say maybe we can do a quote each. But before we do that, I do want you to let the audience know, where can they find you? How can they work with you?
Yes.
Where can they find your book too?
Oh, yes. My book is available where books are sold, and it's available print, Kindle, and also Audible version. If you did want an author signed copy, you can go to my website and contact me there. It's judycounselor.com, judycounselor.com. And you can also take a free relationship stress quiz. So you can kind of see how you're doing with your relationship, how much stress it's causing you. And so that's how they can contact me. And I probably need to find a quote. Actually, my book is full of quotes. The first chapter of every chapter has a quote.
I saw that.
Oh, you want me to start first?
You can go ahead and start first, Judy.
Okay. Goodness. Oh, goodness.
And there's so many of them.
I will quote Thich Nhat Hanh. Awareness is like the sun. When it shines on things, they are transformed.
That's beautiful and so true, just like we were talking about.
Yeah.
All right, I will go next. My quote is from our mentor, Les Brown, and I love this quote because it's also so true, and I can always relate to this quote. It says, "Life has no limitations except for the ones you make."
Mm-hmm.
Powerful.
Yeah, that's a powerful one. Yeah. Well, are you familiar with Ralph Waldo Emerson?
Love him.
Yeah. One of his quotes, I mean, he has so many that I like. Between him and Marcus Aurelius is, a man is what he thinks about all day long. And that's just more that our thoughts are powerful, and, our thoughts, but they become our words, which can become spells upon our life. So that's one of my favorite. I love and James Allen and Marcus Aurelius and Frank Crane, so many of them, because I have this book here that I bought years ago. It's just a book of quotes. I've carried this around with me years. Every time I move, I always now I need this book. I can't give that one away. So. But thank you so much for being on here, Judy. Just fascinating, and just got so many nuggets, and it's going to help a lot of people, and sounds like your book as well. I'm excited about that and need to get that as well, because just your story is just about wow. And just for being so transparent and putting yourself out there, no matter what others think. And gosh, that's living an authentic life.
Well, thank you, Dr. Linda. And I tell you what, you two have made it very easy for me to show up today in this live podcast, to be that way. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
All right. And with that, we are going to end today's show. We have another guest next week, wonderful guest. And in 2 weeks, actually, from today, we will have Mr. Les Brown himself, the father of motivational speakers, the #1 world motivational speaker in the world. So super excited about that.
I'm jealous. That's wonderful. I'm sorry. I just need to say that. I'm definitely going to tune in.
Of course. And then also, I do want to let the audience know, Judy and I are actually speaking this Saturday at a summit with Les Brown, and it's a women's only summit. So we are showing up and showing our power with the world. And so if anybody is able to tune in and show some support, you can go to Les Brown's Facebook page. It's going to be live. It starts, I believe, at 11 o'clock Eastern time. And Judy and I would love to see you all there. So thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
See y'all. Bye.
Bye.